Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are reviewing the 2022 Hyundai Veloster N. I've only driven one Veloster N in the past, and that was several years ago in a video where I compared it against the perennial king of hot hatches, the FK8 Honda Civic Type R. And in that comparison, although I concluded that the Civic Type R was the more capable and well-rounded hot hatch, in terms of fun factor behind the wheel, the Veloster N took the win. I remember saying it just had so much personality, a better engine sound, a more lively handling dynamic. It didn't do everything perfectly, but it went about its way with a smile on its face. So today I'm going to revisit this car and try to put it in perspective of some of the other hot hatches I've driven since that first video. So the owner Shane mentioned that this car is completely stock except for some aftermarket downsized 18-inch wheels. This car came with 19s, and he said those were an absolute nightmare on the street driving over potholes. This car is equipped with the 8-speed dual clutch transmission. The last one I drove had the 6-speed manual. So we have these nice paddle shifters, and we can shift with the gear lever by pushing it over to the left, where you pull to upshift, push to downshift, the right way to do it. This car is powered by a 2-liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engine, making 275 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. If you press the Zygrene shift button, that gives you a temporary overboost to 278 pound-feet of torque. The DCT version of this car weighs around 3,250 pounds, which is almost 150 pounds heavier than the manual. Of course, this car is front-wheel drive. We do get a limited slip differential on the front axle as standard, as well as adaptive dampers with 3 different settings for your damping. Electric power steering, very purposeful interior. Obviously, it's still based on the Veloster, which is an economy hatchback. So you do get some cheap plastics, and even just the echoing of my voice in this cabin makes it apparent that Hyundai did not spend their money on making this a super refined, luxurious driving experience. It's all about the driving dynamics. Love these blue accented buttons on the steering wheel, the stripes on the seats, which are very supportive, excellent bolstering for my back, and pretty decent bolstering for my thighs as well. They're manually adjustable, but I do think I'm sitting about an inch or two too high. We've got strut front and multi-link rear suspension like the vast majority of hot hatches out there, and market value for this car right now is somewhere in the $20,000 to $25,000 range. Brand new, I think these were a touch over $31,000 or $32,000. So let's see how the Veloster N drives and how it compares against some of my favorite hot hatches. Keyless start, which is nice for this class of car. The infotainment is a little bit slow to start up. Checkered flag button on the steering wheel. Put it into N Custom. If you hold it for 3 seconds, it'll go into essentially the settings that you configure on this display. So we've got engine, steering, and transmission in Sport Plus. Suspension will go Sport instead of Sport Plus. ELSD in Sport, ESC off, and exhaust in Sport Plus. We've also got this performance options menu where you can configure the launch control RPM, the shift lights, and power shift, and track sense shift, and automatic creep. This car is just so focused on driving dynamics, and it offers a lot of features that much more expensive cars don't even have. Give it to Albert Biermann for adding some spice to Hyundai's performance car lineup. Ooh, really nice and quick downshifts. Lots of mid-range torque from this 2-liter turbo. This stock exhaust is actually pretty aggressive for a little hot hatch. This thing gets up to speed pretty quickly. And the gearing is nice and short. I can actually use 3rd gear for a lot of these tighter corners. A little bit of turbo lag down low. Wow, really nice LSD locking behavior. It really just helps you pull out of the corner when you add throttle. Now the steering, it's quite heavy in Sport Plus, but not a ton of feedback. The precision is decent, but the on-center feel I think could be better. The Civic Type R and Integra Type S definitely have superior steering feel. But in sport mode for the suspension, this actually feels really proper. Nice firm damping without being bouncy over the bigger bumps. Let's try putting it into Sport Plus. Now, this setting is very, very firm on the street, and as you can see there, doesn't handle the bumps as well. We're not going to launch this. We're going to try to save this 8-speed dual clutch. We'll just go into it from a roll. The engine will rev to a little over 6,500 RPM, it seems. It pulls reasonably hard to the top, but it's more of a mid-range engine, as you'd expect for a 2-liter turbo. Although again, just going back to the Civic Type R and Integra Type S, those engines have a better top end that don't give out as much near the red line. But I do think this car feels a bit more lively in stock form. That LSD locking behavior is so apparent. I would say it's slightly more apparent in the Elantra N, which came out after this, but this still feels really aggressive in the way it's tuned. Really impressive dual clutch. No complaints with it really at all. Even the upshifts are nice and snappy. Some crackles and pops when you lift off the throttle. This is just such an energetic little puppy dog of a hot hatch. Even the way it looks on the exterior, it's aggressive, it's fun, it's boy racer. It's just got so much personality, and I love it for that. I thought I might be a little disappointed by this not having a manual transmission, but honestly, the way this engine is tuned, since it does have quite a bit of turbo lag down low, you want to keep it in that mid-range at all times, and this close ratio 8-speed lets you do that. Now while we're stopped here, we have another screen that gives us this fancy graphic with our RPMs, a circuit mode, where you can choose from a number of popular racetracks in the US, including Sonoma Raceway and WeatherTech Laguna Seca here locally. And we've got some digital gauges for your throttle, brake pressure, and a lap timer. That's really cool, and I wish my Integra Type S had at least this circuit lap timer feature. And this suspension in Sport Plus, it doesn't work on the street, but in the canyons, the body control is excellent. The damping is actually really impressive. There's no bounciness from the rear end at all. It's just nice and firm and controlled. Excellent suspension tuning. Good mid-corner grip. The car is confidence-inspiring without being dull. Unlike some cars like the Volkswagen GTI and Golf R, which in my opinion, very well-rounded cars, great for daily driving, but on a back road or on a racetrack, they do feel just a little bit too soft around the edges. This car definitely has more personality. It's more razor-edged, and I'm sure it's not as capable as a Golf R or a Civic Type R in terms of lap times, maybe closer to the GTI, but this is just more fun to drive, hands down. Look at that. Even in Sport Plus, the way it handled that big bump back there, which upsets a lot of cars I drive, a single compression rebound stroke of the suspension, and it's just settled. It's just really, really great suspension tuning. Now I'm gonna soften the suspension to normal mode, lighten up the steering to sport. I love the fact that all of these different settings can be set individually. You can customize it to your liking. Now on the upshift, you do feel a little bit of a jerk. It actually feels like a forward jerk, which is interesting. Normally you'd feel a little dip in torque. This actually feels like the shift is kind of pushing you forward momentarily. So not the smoothest dual clutch, but the speed of this dual clutch is really, really good. Not the most refined car when you're just trying to relax on your daily commute, but it's got plenty of space in the hatch. Technically it does have a back seat. It's just a really fun little recipe for a hot hatch that you can still drive on a daily basis. Hyundai Veloster N, are these being slept on for a little over $20,000? Out of the box, this might be the most fun hot hatch you can buy today. Let me know what you think down in the comments. What stock hot hatches from the past 5 or 6 years do you think can give this a run for its money for around the same price? A big shout out to the owner, Shane. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.